is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
Last race, Will Power continued his road course dominance and took the win in scenic Watkins Glen. Today, we're in Toronto, Ontario, where the roads have been transformed into IndyCar's version of a superhighway. Canada's open-wheel history started back in 1967, and since 1986, the streets of Toronto have been graced by all the big names in the sport. Today's top drivers have crossed the border, where hockey's king, to do a little checking of their own. And we welcome you to scenic Toronto, Ontario, Canada for race number 10 of the 2010 IZOD IndyCar Series. It is an absolute picture-perfect day. The CN Tower and downtown off in the distance. And that is the scene here trackside. That's the front straightaway on this 1.75-mile layout. A lot of the big names of the sport, in fact, all the key players, including Paul Tracy. He is a hometown hero. Grew up in Scarborough, just a little bit northeast of downtown Toronto. Danica Patrick didn't grow up in Canada, but she'd like to take home the trophy. 3 top 10s in her last 4 races, including a second at Texas. Justin Wilson, he's going to start from pole today. We'll be talking more about him in just a matter of a few moments. And Elio Castroneves found out last year what happens when you take out the hometown hero at his home track. Dario Franchitti, along with Tracy, one of those 2-time Toronto winners. In fact, he won this event last year. The green flag waves, and this race is green.
Dario Franchitti on pole for the 3rd time in his last 5 races.
Paul Tracy now finds himself moving up through the field.
If there's anybody that knows how to get around Toronto, it's Paul Tracy.
Dario Franchitti now leads in Toronto.
Here goes Tracy trying to dive bomb the corner. Does he make it? Oh, they stuff each other.
Started on pole. He will win for the 2nd time on the streets of Toronto.
Well, Dario Franchitti is a 2-time winner here, but today he's going to have to put those skills to work. After the final practice, you guys made an engine change. Why?
We just weren't happy with the performance in a straight line. We had the car trimmed out, actually more than Scott's, but we were still slower than him in a straight line. So the management and the team decided, okay, we're gonna have to change the engine, see if that's the problem. We've tried everything else, so I think the Airwick car is very good around the twisty parts. So hopefully we can get it working in the straight line now too.
Well, nobody has won this race from outside the top 13. What is your plan to get to the front early?
Well, we're starting 5th still. We don't start at the back, so we're quite relaxed about that. I think the competition up front is very quick. Justin in particular, obviously Will's good. There's a couple of guys behind as well, be pressuring us, but it's going to be fast, stay up front all day, make no mistakes, and see what we got.
All right, one of Dario's biggest competitors on a road course, Will Power, showed just how good he is a race ago.
Will Power going to get a good jump as the green flag waves. The Power stormed to the front from pole position as he outdueled his Team Penske teammates.
Will Power, does he break the jinx and become the first pole sitter to win?
They have never won here. Team Penske has been on pole every year. They come up empty. Power's going to dive to the inside.
He's retaken the lead.
Power just absolutely made it look easy.
The jinx is over for Team Penske. They win.
Will Power indeed coming off that victory at Watkins Glen. 5 road course, street course races this season, and you've won 3 of them. But what's unique about Toronto and its challenges?
You know, I think the tough thing about this track is that you've got a lot of bumps and different track surface, so it makes for great racing. I mean, you got that long straight into turn 3. The key is to stay out of trouble, watch the first lap, and you know, the field windows are wide open, so I think it's going to be a very mixed-up race.
So many people have been talking about Justin Wilson and the impressive weekend he has had. Is he the guy you feel like you need to be today?
I mean, yeah, he's an exceptional driver. It's no surprise he's on the pole. You know, if the win's there to be taken, of course, but you know, we've got to be really aware of the guys that I'm racing in the championship, and you know, I've got to continually finish ahead of them. 3
of the top 5 in the standings are Penske drivers. How would you describe the competition amongst the 3 of you? You're, of course, Ryan Briscoe and Elio Castroneves.
It's friendly competition, you know. We always race each other really clean and fair. You know, but at the end of the day, they are another competitor, and you know, 3 different teams once we get on the racetrack. So I'd love to love to be ahead.
that was very politically correct. Well done. Will Power, he's starting up front today next to Justin Wilson. Marty.
All right, thank you, Vince. Let's take a look at our IZOD IndyCar Series standings through 9 of 17 races. And courtesy of those 3 wins, you see Will Power has a 32-point margin over Dario Franchitti. And then on down through the top 5. And take a look at the man in 8th position. Long way out. Not going to be a contender probably for the championship. But, boy, I'll tell you what, he has had one heck of a weekend for Dreyer Reinbold Racing. Take a look at what happened yesterday in pole qualifying. In knockout shootout, I mean, this guy was strong all weekend long. Just a tick over 1 minute at 104.8 miles an hour. His first pole in the IZOD IndyCar Series, his 8th in the career, and he snaps the streak of 8 straight poles by Team Penske. He's Scott Goodyear. I'm Marty Reed, and we're so glad that you're with us here. Let's also talk about one other thing. In the last 3 years, there's been 43 races. All those races have been won by Penske, Ganassi, or Andretti Racing, except for 4. Justin Wilson's played a role in that.
And that's the amazing thing here, because this series is so competitive. But for Justin Wilson, who's done this with 2 different teams, it just goes to prove how strong he is, not only as a driver, but also technically. And that's what the teams tell us, that he has an understanding for the race car. And this track here at Toronto, Marty, is very technical, and I think that's why we've seen him here on the pole by a few tenths of a second, which is really unheard of with as competitive as this series is right now.
Well, it's not often that we get to break news here in the series, but you saw that interview with Dario Franchitti, and Race Control and just informed us they were not aware that they changed an engine. They are reviewing whether or not he's going to have to go to the rear and start there, or will he keep his number 5 starting position. What do you think?
Well, I think for the excitement of the day for the race, I put him to the back. Let's see how he can come through. I mean, obviously a great driver. He doesn't want to start back there, but I think it'd be great for our telecast and our fans today.
Spoken from the guy who doesn't have to do the job.
Don't have
just
to do
wants
it anymore.
to watch it. Yeah. Let's talk about the guys who have come through the field here and won at the streets of Toronto. Of course, as you heard already, Bobby Rahal won the inaugural race back in 1986. And then from there, Al Unser Jr. won 2 of the next 4 races here at Toronto. And Michael Andretti, he was king of the mountain. 5 consecutive, 7 overall here in the streets of Toronto, Ontario. And Paul Tracy, the hometown hero, 2-time winner, 1993 and 2003. He is the hometown hero. Rick?
Well, every time Paul Tracy's in a race, the expectations are high. After all, 20 years of experience, 31 victories, but it's very difficult to do that when you're moving from team to team. How difficult is it to make that transition, working one team one weekend, another team another?
Well, you know, obviously this weekend hasn't gone exactly how we've wanted it to go from start so far to this point, but the race is a different story. You know, last weekend we had a good race with Dreyer and Reinbold, and they did a real nice, tidy job. You know, for the whole team at KV this weekend, it's been a struggle. We've struggled with lack of grip, so we've got our work cut out for us today. But with all these signatures I have for Make-A-Wish, we've got the wings of the people on me, so hopefully that'll give us a boost.
All right, you're starting in the back of the pack. Jimmy Vasser yesterday suggested, why not just start in pit lane to avoid all the trouble that may happen in front?
Yeah. Well, I said, did you ever do that in your career? And he said, no. I said, well, I'm not going to start either, so in the pit lane. So, you know, we're going to just see what happens. The first lap is always a bit chaotic here. There's always somebody that gets into something, but, you know, we'll just try to pick our way through.
All right, Paul Tracy trying to hang on. Guy with not quite as much experience, but a little more speed up front is with our own Vince Welch, Marco Andretti.
Part of that 4-car Andretti Autosport team. Marco Andretti been very pleased with his race car, particularly in that final practice. But first, let's talk a little bit of history here. Your dad had great success here, won 7 times on the streets of Toronto. How much does that play into your mind as you come into an event like this?
Oh, a lot. You know, I think, you know, for my second win in my career, this would be the place. If it's not Indianapolis, you know, this place, like you said, has been very special to our family. Dad in particular, you know, winning 7 times is almost unheard of, you know. So it was, you know, I was there for a lot of them, too, so it's been special to us.
How about your race car for today? How much do you think you're going to be in the mix with the car you have?
Well, I mean, obviously it's one thing to say, another to back it up. You know, I'm not one to just say it, but I feel pretty confident going into the race. I think overnight we made a lot of good changes. you know, we were struggling yesterday for sure. You know, I was actually happy to end up 10th with what I was dealing with. So, you know, I think we've improved it a lot overnight. So it felt good. I mean, the time this morning didn't really reflect on how good the car felt. So hopefully we can be right in the mix.
Yeah, he's one of those that drivers are mentioning in the paddock as one of the guys to beat, Marco Andretti. Now let's go to Jamie Little, who's with another second-generation driver.
And Graham Rahal's dad, Bobby Rahal, won the inaugural race here back in 1986. You see the old car right there. What is it like for you, Graham, racing here knowing that your dad was such a big part of history?
Well, it's Toronto's a great event. I mean, obviously the family's fortunate Dad won the first, but now it's my turn, right? So I have to do the same. And unfortunately, this weekend we've struggled a little bit. We got a little bit of work to do, but we're much better this morning, and the guys are working awfully hard.
Now, this is the first race since the end of 2009. You're back with Newman Haas. How did this reunion come about for you guys?
Well, really, it's all in thanks to Quick Trim. They came on board yet again after being with us at Indy. And I had talked a little bit with Bernie Haas, who runs Newman Haas now, and Bernie wanted to do some stuff. And so financially for everybody, it was better to be here. It was a team I was familiar with. They gave me my engineer, my chief mechanic. A lot of the same people I worked with last year are back with me now. And so it was a place that we felt we could kind of fit right in and start where we kind of left off. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked that way yet, but we know that we'll be here for 6 races. Mid-Ohio is unsponsored right now, but we have 6 races. And we won't be at Edmonton or Kentucky, but we picked the best ones.
You make the most of it today. The car is getting better, and he hopes to do what his dad did, go to victory lane. Marty?
All right, thanks, Debbie. We always like to keep track of people, what they're doing off the track, and it was hard to miss last Wednesday when Danica Patrick walked the red carpet and was one of the presenters at this year's annual ESPY Awards. It was a great show. She looks a little bit different there. She's back in her usual costume with Rick DeBrule here at the track.
Well, Danica Patrick looking a little different right now as opposed to how she looked at the ESPYs. Probably a little more comfortable. But let's talk about the race this weekend. Qualified 12th, your best on the road course this year. Are you comfortable with this track?
Yeah, definitely different than from the ESPYs. That day I was trying not to eat too much for my dress, and today I'm trying to eat as much as I can put in my mouth, and I'm not hungry. Anyway, yeah, it was a much better day for the GoDaddy car. It really was. We've really, you know, made a step forward this weekend, and we got inside the top 12. We weren't able to really capitalize after that. We had used both our red sets to get in. So, you know, hopefully we can keep this going and, you know, be fast enough in practice that we can save one of those red sets to be able to, you know, work on advancing out of that second group or up that second group. But it has been a better weekend.
Last year, you moved up 12 spots, qualified 18th, finished 6th. All right, how easy is it going to be to move up from that starting position you've got?
Well, yeah, the further up you start, the harder they are. So, but you know, a lot of times the most amount of trouble you stay out of too. So, the team did a good job with strategy last year, and we pitted early and caught the yellow. So, I guess we'll just see how the start goes and see where we're at and see if we should, you know, pit early or pit late. It just depends on how it's going. It's one of those interesting races for strategy because, you know, the stints are 30 laps long and the race is only 80 laps, so it's 2 pit stops with some leeway, so it makes it interesting.
All right, Danica's very good at staying out of trouble. Hopefully she can pull it off again this weekend. Marty?
Thank you, Rick. Also earlier this week, the unveiling of the brand new strategy for the future car of IndyCar, and the Dallara chassis was selected.
And new CEO Randy Bernard put together a team, an advisory team, to help him make the decision on this new chassis. And the great portion there is the new Dallara safety cell that everybody will have. And on top of that, then other manufacturers can go ahead and build the wings and the side pods. So, Marty, I think starting in 2012, we are now going to have some very different looking cars and maybe some radical looking cars, and it's maybe something that we need in the series to bring us back to what we had maybe years ago when the rules were wide open. Now you're going to have a situation where there's going to be some different looking cars and some cars that maybe fans will get behind because they will be radically different.
Well, as we well know, you can't please everybody, but your overall general impressions, you seem to be pretty positive on this.
Very positive, because I mean safety is foremost, and that's what they tried to do here. They wanted to make sure it was a very safe car. They wanted to reduce cost. They wanted to make sure that it was fan friendly because it was going to be different, and I think they really met all their goals with this new board. They did a great job. They have some real heavy hitters in there making those decisions, and I think they really addressed all those issues. Now the teams are anxious to get the cars late next year to get ready for 2012.
Base cost supposed to be about 45% less than the current product out on the track. What about the engine combination? What do you think about that?
And that's going to change too, because right now we're running a V8 engine, and now we're going to go to a 4 or a 6-cylinder engine, which is going to be turbocharged. Going back to the days when I drove, when we had turbocharged engines, 550 to 700 horsepower. So, and the cars will also be lighter, so a little bit more speed and maybe some, I don't want to say new track records at Indianapolis, but maybe the speeds will be bumped up again.
So that's in 2012. We still have a lot to go, but let's talk about the history of the cars. Let's take you back through a bit of the timeline. And I was told by the crew to tease you about this. I'm supposed to ask you what the Marmon Wasp actually drove like.
Well, thank you very much, but that might be more your area. Thank you very much, Tom.
Of course, Ray Haroon winning the first Indy 500 in the Marmon Wasp.
And the Miller chassis, it won 6 Indy 500s, and 2 of them were with Louis Meyer, who's aboard the car that we see in the picture.
And then as we moved a little bit further, the old front-engine roadsters, the Watson Roadster, of course, that's Parnell A. Jones sitting behind the wheel at the Brickyard.
And in the mid to late 60s with a rear engine car, and there you see the Coyote with A.J. Foyt aboard. That was his 1967 winning car.
And a personal favorite of mine. Anything that Dan Gurney built, I always loved. And in the 70s, the Gurney Eagle, and of course that is Bobby Unser.
In the 1980s, and here is a Pennzoil Penske machine of Rick Mears, who won in 1988 aboard that car. And Marty, that's the era that I start to remember, thanks.
All right. Hey, as you can see from high above, a good crowd heading towards their seats. Cars are on the grid, and drivers are strapping in. And that means when we come back, we'll get the command to start engines and go racing here on the streets of Toronto. As we told you, it is an absolutely gorgeous day here in Toronto, and the crowd, as we mentioned, making their way to their seats around this 1.75-mile layout. And let's talk a little bit about that weather. As you can see, it's getting a little warmer. It's been up into the 80s, a little bit earlier down trackside. Alex Tagliani, of course, one of the Canadians. He is a huge Montreal Canadiens fan, but did not want to insult the Toronto Maple Leaf fans, so he's got one jersey of each. And you know exactly what that's all about, Scott.
Well, being a Toronto native, definitely Toronto is your team. And I have to say that I did lose a bet with Alex earlier in the year between Toronto and Montreal. It was for dinner, and he's not remembered, so I won't tell him.
There are the stats. Let's show you what this 1.75-mile layout looks like as we start out from Google Earth.
And Marty, the streets here in downtown Toronto are very bumpy, but they've made a very neat 11-turn circuit here through the Canadian National Exhibition in that 1.75-mile distance, as you said. And going down here into turn 1, it's a great passing zone as we ride aboard now with Paul Tracy. Just watch him coming out of turn 1, headed towards turn 2, and then he'll take that long run down that backstretch towards turn 3. And watch the Firestone telemetry. The miles per hour are going up. His changing gears are on the lower side. He keeps his hands on the steering wheel now with the new paddle shifters we're using this year. Hard on the brakes into turn 3. A great passing zone. Watch for a lot of action there again here this year. Out of turn 3, very slow first gear, just about 40 miles an hour, accelerating very quickly up through the gears, all the way quickly to 100 miles an hour, hard on the brakes for turn 5, and then you accelerate towards turn 6, which is a right-hander, coming from 6, go through 7, down into 8, a very bumpy section of the racetrack again, usually a lot of action there. We're exiting 8 right now towards 9. Watch Paul's hands from pavement to concrete to pavement, and this is very much similar to all the turns here at Toronto, going through turn 11, very high-speed circuit. A lot of people having problem with their cars there, and run back down the front stretch towards the Princess Gates.
And that's one lap, and here we are looking at turn number 1, and all the guys are talking about the concrete patches, that it is so slick every time you hit them.
And the grip is not consistent, so getting something to work for your race car is very difficult. All the drivers are telling me it's a huge compromise here to get your car to work. It's not great at all turns, so today they know that they have to be on top of it without trying to overdo it and make a mistake.
There's turn 3. You'll remember it by the Budweiser banners. Again, concrete on the inside. They're a real difficult spot. This is where Paul Tracy and Elio Castroneves had their incident last year. Okay, there's Dario Franchitti. Now, we have just been informed by race officials they made their investigation. No rules were violated, so he will get to keep his 5th starting position. So a very important break for the number 10 team wearing the Airwick colors for Target Ganassi Racing. So as the drivers strap in, you know, we talked about how difficult this course is. The best comment I heard, Scott, came from Ryan Hunter-Reay. He said you should feel like you will crash on almost every corner. That's how hard you have to drive this track to go fast.
And that's because of the surface of this racetrack, because of the bumpiness, because of the pavement changes here. It's going to be difficult for every driver in the field.
Well, we are waiting for the command to start engines. You can see the drivers trying to stay cool as the temperature gets closer and closer to that 80-degree mark. That's not the warmest it has been, but remember, we're going to be in the cars for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. We get word now it is time for us to send it down trackside to get this race number 10 underway.
Honda, Indy, Toronto race fans, are you ready? It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command, please welcome our Grand Marshal, Academy Award nominated actor, Greg Kinnear.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Oh yeah!
So the engines have come to life on the 26 cars. There will be 3 pace laps, and then we will go green here on the streets of Toronto, Ontario.
Here goes Tracy trying to dive bomb the corner. Does he make it? They have contact. Now returning.
Yes,
oh, they stuff each other. They take each other out of the race. Neither one would give.
He would be the last guy that I would have taken out here in Canada. Obviously, Tracy and I have something. It's always going to be like that.
We were racing really hard. I'm not going to say he did it on purpose, but I think it's just a racing incident. I wanted to get by.
And Elio's right. There's something about these two. This is earlier today. That's Tracy on the left side of the screen.
And down into turn 3 at the end of Lakeshore Boulevard, 170 miles an hour. And those guys came very close to lopping wheels because they touched going into the turn, and very luckily they did not have an impact.
And as Elio found out, this is definitely Paul Tracy's town.
It's great to be able to race here because it's my biggest fan base. One of the first major wins of my career was here.
Paul Tracy winning for the first time in the IndyCars in front of his home crowd.
This is like Canada's version of Manhattan. My dad's claim to fame was to paint the CN Tower, so everything that was originally in that painted, you know, top to bottom was painted by my dad. And then the most significant thing is the outside of the towers is where it's white at the top with the red stripe and black stripe. He was up there painting that, hanging with ropes off the side of it.
And his father actually owned the painting company, and I have no idea what possessed him to want to paint that high up, 1,800 feet. And he will start 24th as you'll see the starting grid coming across the top of the screen. We've also got 6 onboard cameras as we take a look at those. They're on the second of 3 pace laps. Here it is. Dan Weldon, Danica Patrick, Dario Franchitti, Paul Tracy, Marco Andretti, and a great nose cam shot right on the very tip of the front of that 37 of Ryan Hunter-Reay. Let's get the latest update from pit road. First up is Jamie Little.
Well, Marty, all 26 drivers in today's field made an appearance in downtown Toronto on Thursday night. It was all about the fans. They signed autographs, walked the red carpet. But the most fun they had was the pit stop competition between the 2 Canadians, Paul Tracy and Alex Tagliani. And at the end, they both wore each other's jerseys. They were great sports about it. And you can bet there's a lot of fans out here today who would like to see one of these guys win. Rick?
Well, Jamie, it's events like that that make it difficult for a guy like Alex Tagliani to come home. All those fans up there, they want to see tags. As a result, he's got a very hectic schedule because he's one of the Canadians in this race. Another distraction for him today, his regular strategist on the radio, Rob Edwards, isn't going to be here today. As a result, Don Oldenburg's going to be handling the radio duties. It's not a crisis, but it's just a distraction in a very hectic schedule. Vince?
After the very first stint of the initial practice of the weekend, Justin Wilson came to his team and he said, "This car is horrible." Team manager Larry Curry told him, "You're 7/10 faster than the rest of the field." Even when they've been bad, they've been good, Marty.
And just as you finish, we go green in the streets of Toronto. Justin Wilson on the inside, and trying to get underneath him was the 3 of Helio Castroneves, but it is Wilson, and the only car in the top 15 to start on the black tires. Everybody else on the red alternates.
And he gets a bit of a break right from turn 1 through 2. Remember, 170 miles an hour going down Lakeshore Boulevard right here. And very impressive start for Wilson. The rest of the guys know they cannot let him get away.
Heading for turns 4, 5, and 6. A real tight section through here. Tony Kanaan on the inside of the 12 of Will Power. He has to give a little way there. He falls back behind.
Remember, difficult on a track that's smooth because you're waiting for the tire pressures and temperatures to come up. Add the bumpy surface that we have here, along with the different types of pavement and concrete surfaces you have to drive over. It's a very tough first couple of laps here in Toronto.
Getting ready to complete lap number 1. We'll give you an update. Vitor Mirror pulled off in turn number 1. We'll try and get an update as quickly as possible. At the end of the first of 85 laps, it is Justin Wilson, Helio Castroneves, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Dario Franchitti's up to 4th. Scott Dixon rounds out your top 5. That's Lakeshore Boulevard. They head down that long back straightaway. One of the 2 best passing zones comes up here into turn 3. Dan Weldon has wing damage on the front, so he is in the pits on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, out on track, everyone holding station.
And for Dan Weldon, who started 15th, he was right in the middle of the pack, so that's probably what happened with some contact. Vince Welch?
That's exactly right, Scott. When you have that many cars trying to get into a narrow first turn, they bunch up. There was contact on the nose. Weldon reported it right away. They had to come in and get it fixed. A tough break for a team that's already been struggling here this weekend.
And he's back out on track. Let's go back and show you exactly what happened to Dan Weldon.
This is down the backstretch right now, down into turn number 3. Sticks his nose in just, it starts to bottleneck up, and he ends up running into the back of EJ Vizo. Doesn't look like any damage to EJ, but certainly had the wing damage to Dan Weldon.
Yeah, Vizo could have had a tire cut. He's safely ensconced in 15th position. Meanwhile, up front, it is still Justin Wilson. And across the top, you'll see whether they're running the primary black or the alternate reds. And this was one thing that we talked about right before the beginning of the race. As you see Alex Tagliani trying to catch up and pass Paul, or I should say, the 7-11, Tony Kanaan right there as they head through turns 5 and into 6.
Turn 6 here, very difficult, a very long turn. All the drivers are complaining that it's so blind you can't see what's on the other side, but you're hard going through the gears and very quickly getting up to about 110 miles an hour down towards turn 8.
As they come around turn 9, 10, and there is turn 11. There is your race leader. About a half a second lead, but let's get back to that subject that we talked about. He's the only car, Justin Wilson, on the primaries, and you mentioned it before the start. If he could maintain and even pull away, it would be demoralizing for everybody behind him on the red alternates.
And that's certainly what he's trying to do right now, but it looks like Castroneves is starting to make up just a little bit of time on him. With the black tires, they might not come up to temperature and grip as quickly as the softer red compound tires, as we get Ryan Hunter-Reay right now on the inside. And that's a nice move because he did slice underneath Dixon. Very difficult passing we talked about going around here. Now, as you mentioned, Marty, it's only Justin Wilson that's on the black sidewall tire. It's what they call the primary tire. Everybody else has gone to the alternate, that red one, which is softer, which does have more grip. But will it last as long throughout the stint? That's what everybody's going to find out here shortly today.
Let's find out on that strategy. Vince Welch.
Well, Justin Wilson has been very good on the blacks. You're actually even a little bit better on the blacks this weekend than he has been on the reds from a comfort perspective. But they have 2 sets of sticker reds coming into this race. And when I asked Larry Curry, their team manager, why they decided to start on the blacks instead of start on one of those 2 sets of sticker reds, he said, we want to be good early and great late. If we've got 2 sets of sticker reds, we don't see there's any way we're going to be anyway beatable in the later stages of this race. We'll see.
It's the second race this year that he has led. He led 11 laps in the closing stages of the Indianapolis 500. Well, that new engine must be to Dario's liking, Jamie Little. He started 5th, and he is now up to 3rd.
Definitely on the move forward. Just wanted to update that engine situation. I talked to Chip Ganassi. They said if a motor is not performing at the optimum level they think it should, they're allowed to protest it. So Honda will take it back, put it on the dyno, check the numbers, and see if it's good. If it is, they will make this team run the engine at a future race. For now, he was able to keep his starting position, has a fresh engine, and so far, so good, Marty.
All right, thanks for the update, Jamie, and that should help everybody along the way understand exactly why everything happened the way it did. Let's move deeper into the field. Remember, Paul Tracy started back in 24th position. Well, he has already been pleasing the hometown fans here in Toronto. Watch for the blue number 15. There he comes around the very back of turn 11. He has now moved up to 18th position. Let's listen to his radio.
Attaboy, go get him.
That is Thomas Schechter right in front of him, his next target for 17th.
Down this long straightaway, he wants to make up time going into the turns under braking. And once he gets into turn 3 here, if he can squeeze the throttle and catch up just a little bit every turn, Richter Brule, that's what Paul Tracy has to accomplish here.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get past those first 6 than the next 6, but he's definitely got that on his mind. They had a problem yesterday during qualifying. Something wasn't set up right on the car, and they found that last night. They were able to fix it going into the morning. As a result, he's much happier with the car the way it's set up today. As a result, he knew going into this race that he had a chance of moving up. Now, we joke about whether he was going to start on pit lane. He said, no, I want to be out there in the thick of it all, and obviously you can see him doing that. By the way, this is his 272nd career IndyCar start.
And his 18th visit here to the streets of Toronto. And right now he is moved up to 18th position, but there's the man in control. He has been in control pretty much the whole weekend. We've still got a long way to go in this race though. Justin Wilson out front as we go side by side. No changes in the top running order here at the streets of Toronto. Let's take a look at our GoDaddy.com rules of racing. We're going to go 85 laps, and the pit window somewhere between 28 and 32. Push to pass, you have 15 of them this time. They'll last 16 seconds, and then you have a 10-second recharge, and you must complete 2 green flag laps on each of the black primaries and the alternate reds. As we mentioned, everything is holding station through the top portion of the field. Justin Wilson ahead of Elio Castroneves, Dario Franchitti, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Scott Dixon. But further back, we've been watching a great battle. Bertrand Baguette is leading this freight train. He has moved up 4 positions, up to 12th. Right behind him is Rafa Matos, Graham Rahal. They're duking it out for 13th.
And Bertrand Baguette driving for Conquest Racing for Eric Bachelard, one of the smaller teams, but when you get to a road course, if your driver's a very good road course driver, usually you can make up time versus being on an oval. As we see right now, the battle at the front continues to go, but for Justin Wilson, he had to maneuver around the 18 Citgo car of Milka Duno.
And Milka has not been able to keep up the minimum speed. She has been ordered to pit lane, so as they work their way around her, heading into a lookout, that's where it gets a little dicey. She's got to work her way over now, and she does, as she's trying to make her way to pit lane.
Now, I can tell you that all the leaders right there are wishing that she had got that information and that signal a lap before, so they didn't have to take the chance to go around her.
You must maintain 107% of the pole speed and then race speed, and she has not been able to. They're putting tires on. We'll update you, see whether or not they'll let her go back out. As we said, the battle up front got a little tighter because of all that action. Justin Wilson, there's Elio Castroneves right behind him. Elio's trying to put the pressure on, but so far, Justin Wilson's strategy of starting on the primary blacks is working perfectly.
Now, as they continue to run through this fuel load, and they think they might be able to get somewhere between 28 to 32 laps on a fuel stint without yellow. In theory, the red tires might start to go away and the grip might start to fall off. So in that scenario, your car might go a little slower.
Firestone telemetry showing you what's happening with Dario Franchitti as he's running in third.
Hard on the brakes here, down into turn 1. Paddle shifters, remember, on the steering wheel, no longer reaching over to grab the stick shift on the right-hand side. All the drivers love that, especially at a bumpy place like we have here in Toronto. Watch the speed here on the Firestone telemetry on the top right-hand side. Get close to just over 170 miles an hour in most cases. Hard on the brakes, down to first gear, about 40 miles an hour. This is so difficult here, just squeezing the throttle. Don't want to spin the tires too much because you'll make them wear out a little sooner. As we get through this section here, you bounce off the curbs. Focus is the main thing here, Marty, because if you go one step away from what you're used to, you'll collect the wall.
If you're a Justin Wilson fan, I'm about to give you a stat that you're going to love. In the push-to-pass department, he has yet to hit the button. Helio Castroneves has already used one trying to overtake and has not been successful.
And what that push-to-pass does for you is you push the button on the steering wheel, and as you mentioned, for 16 seconds, you end up getting a little bit more horsepower, another 200 RPM. So some more horsepower of the engine makes you go a little quicker, but it hasn't worked for Helio so far.
Let's get an update from the 22 pit. Vince?
Well, this team was very disappointed with the way it finished last year. They came here with 2 cars that they felt were very solid cars, and they got nothing to show for it at the end of the weekend. And Larry Curry, the team manager, knew that they had a setup that would be successful here, and he knew that his driver, Justin Wilson, was just the guy to execute it. Wilson is a former winner here. He won here during his Champ Car days. They were disappointed with a 10th place finish last weekend at Watkins Glen. They had a team meeting this week about making sure that they had their game together. They had their I's dotted and their T's crossed. A lot more focus coming into this weekend, and they have executed the plan perfectly so far.
They certainly have, Vince. Right now, lap 13, and the leader of all 13 of them is that man out front, Justin Wilson. Back here at Toronto, let's talk about the calendar coming up, because the Fram Auto Light NHRA Nationals finals tonight, 6 Eastern on ESPN2, and the NASCAR Nationals tomorrow at 5 Eastern on ESPN2. And the NASCAR Nationwide Series will be at O'Reilly Raceway Park in Indianapolis. That's Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. And of course, Sprint Cup Series coverage, Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral next Sunday, noon Eastern on ESPN. And then the Eyes on IndyCar Series will be at Edmonton next Sunday at 5 Eastern over on Versus. Nothing's changed up front. Right now, it is still Justin Wilson leading Helio Castroneves. And no trouble for Takuma Sato as he has hit the runoff area. He's out of harm's way. You can see where he is at the end of turn 3, and we have our first full course caution.
And Marty, it looked like he had damage to the right front when the car was rolling to a stop. It looks like the right front wheel has been dislodged for some reason, so we'll have to find out what happened, if it was a mechanical or if he's impacted the wall. And here's our answer right now. 2 cars trying to fit in the same area, and usually that's a bad scenario. And for Takuma Sato right now, he ends up being taken out.
And that's both KV Racing teammates right there. That's not going to go over well, because that is now the 19th incident of contact involving this team this year. To give you an idea, Dreyer Reinbold said they had a bad year last year with 15 for the entire season, and it will be the 6th DNF alone here in the 10th race for Takuma Sato as we have our first full course caution. And this is on the cusp of being inside the window. Everybody was talking about lap 18. We're on lap 16.
Well, and everybody's going to take advantage of that. They will come in. They will put on tires, obviously, and some fuel. And track position is so important here. So watch for some pressure on the pit crew right now to get the work completed as quickly as possible to get their driver out ahead of everybody else.
As you can see, they'll make another lap as pit lane has not yet been opened. You know, when Justin Wilson won back here in 2005, he only led the final 10 laps. Well, today he's not only led the first 10, he's led the first 17. But he's hoping that it will be the same result.
And for me, I'm going to be very interested to see if he goes ahead and puts another set of black tires on, or if he goes ahead and puts a set of red tires on, because reds aren't always the fastest tires. Sometimes you can put that red tire on your car and it changes the balance and the handling of the car, and some drivers prefer the original standard black tires.
And that's what Vince was saying in his report, that Justin said he really likes the performance of the black, but do you want to then button yourself into a hole where you have to put the reds on as your final set?
Well, as the rule is, you do have have to put that brand new set of red alternate tires on at least for 2 laps. So team decision, we'll have to find out what they go with here shortly.
Well, we may get our answer in the not too distant future. They're now down into the turn 3 section. And get a good look at everybody as they come through. Great paint job. And you ought to see the reaction of the young kids around that 77 of Alex Tagliani, the Hot Wheels machine. They're going to sell a few of those when that comes out in September on the collector car circuit.
Marty, for all these drivers right now, also as rough and as punishing as this racetrack is, they're probably welcoming this yellow. They're probably just regaining an opportunity to have a bit of a hand stretch in the car and take their breath, because your heart rate is up all the time. Making changes here in the pits will be important, either tire pressures or wings.
Okay, so Paul Tracy is our biggest mover so far as we get the word pit lane is open. Bertrand Baguette picked up 3 spots from where he started. Tracy picked up 6. Our race leader from the start has been Justin Wilson. And as they pull it in, let's quickly send it in to Rick DeBrule.
And let's start off by talking about Alex Tagliani. You talk about that paint job. It's designed to mimic kind of the generic IndyCar that they've got out there with the flames. The good news, they were able to get both sponsors on this car. He's bringing the car in. He's been uncomfortable with the fact that it's been very loose. No actual changes other than tire pressure changes. Vince?
Justin Wilson in the 22, earning the pole position, was a huge boost for him. They've gone to the sticker reds. Jamie?
Elio Castroneves, you see him sliding out of his pit box. He put on some black scuff tires, took off the Reds fuel. No changes for the 3 car.
And there is our race off pit road as Castroneves and Franchitti beat Wilson. He loses 3 spots. Power also picks up 2 positions. So the pit stop really hurts Justin Wilson here under the caution. As you get to look at Paul Tracy as he stayed out, and so did, it looked like, the 14 right there of Vitor Meira. So we'll find out what this folds or unfolds as far as strategy when we come back as we go side by side. Still under caution gives us a chance to talk about baseball as we'll round the bases with ESPN tonight and tomorrow night. First, it's Ryan Howard and the Phillies taking on Alfonso Soriano and the Cubs. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball at 8 Eastern. And then on ESPN's Monday Night Baseball at 7 Eastern, the Phillies head to St. Louis to face Albert Pujols and the Cardinals. Both games available on ESPN3.com. As we mentioned, under our first caution, there is the nose camera view from Ryan Hunter-Reay. You feel like you're literally riding right on the road. Been told by race control we will not go green this time by, so a little bit of time to talk a bit about strategy. You know, we sometimes make the assumption that a stop like what happened to Justin Wilson is something that went wrong in his pit box, but let's throw out the possibility of potentially short filling.
Well, in short filling, if the Penske cars did what they call short fill, they didn't take a full load of fuel, and when you're at the end of pit lane like they are, they can look up the pit lane and see that Justin Wilson is about ready to leave his pit box. He's somewhere about in the middle of pit lane. They can pull up their fuel probe, drop their drivers on the ground, and send them out. And for Elio Castroneves, I mean, he gained a position. Will Power stay stationary, but when you look at Justin Wilson, to lose 3 spots, they are going to have to do a little quicker pit stops, or else possibly come with a short fill if that's exactly what Penske did.
All right, let's reset this for you because Paul Tracy and Vitor Meira did not stop. They are still out there, first and second. And then it's Elio Castroneves, Dario Franchitti, Will Power, Justin Wilson, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon, and Ryan Briscoe. Danica Patrick is shown in 11th position. And the reason for this caution was the damage to Takuma Sato's car. Jamie Little's caught up with him.
And he's walking back to his pit box right now. Takuma, you made that long walk down pit road and you don't look happy. What happened?
No, I mean, we were side by side completely, and Mario Moraes basically closed the door. We were, completely side by side. Just absolutely no point in shut the door like that. I had nowhere to go because already the wheel inside like this, and I had nowhere to go.
All right, thank you for your time. Takuma Sato is out early. Marty?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun team meeting at the end of the day. Takuma obviously not happy as we get ready to go back to green flag racing through turn 11. Here comes your leader, Paul Tracy, and the Canadian fans are standing in the front grandstand cheering on their local hero.
You can see he drove it in very hard down into turn 1. The back end of the car almost started to slide around a little bit. Remember, he did not come in for the pit lane. His tires might be a little warmer than the ones that have fresh tires on there, but for Paul Tracy, he's going to have to pedal that thing extra hard as right now, Power's going to...
Oh, contact! Look out! Castroneves has contact with Vitor Mira, and he is hard into the tire barrier at turn 3. This is about the same location where he started his contact last year, as there is Tim Cindric looking on the monitor.
You know, that was somewhat similar to what happened last weekend at Watkins Glen with Dixon trying to go around Castroneves. Unfortunately, it was Castroneves on the backside this time. You have to time those passes correctly so you don't end up getting your front wing into the rear of the car that you're trying to pass.
The Homaltro safety crew on the scene, and they're checking on Elio, making sure that he is okay. There's the view from high above. You can see how hard he went in because the contact moving all of those tire barriers a full car length back from where they were.
And you can see Elio moving inside the cockpit. They will take their time to make sure everything is okay with Elio. And team owner Roger Penske is looking on. Now remember, when he loses the wheel as he did when he comes down, he does not have any brakes left on the car. So he really could not slow the car down too much before it went down the escape road at the end of the straight and into the tire barrier.
All right, there you see that Elio is climbing out of the cockpit of the car. That's the best sign. You can hear the crowd in the background applauding as they're looking on the big screens around the track. One man not applauding, and there's another. So they are now down to 2 competitors. All right, check the left side of your screen.
Yeah, because we had 2 situations going here. Both the Penske cars are trying to make a pass on the cars in front, and just see how close that was. He just caught the back end of Vitor Mira's car, took off the wheel. Like I said, the brakes are no longer working. He is slowing the speed somewhat, but when you go into the tire barrier, it's still an impact.
You're right. If you take a look at last week's race where Scott Dixon, he clipped, it wasn't as severe a damage. They cut the tire and also had wing damage, but nobody got launched like this.
Yeah, and a moment before that happened, we were watching Will Power trying to go around Dario Franchitti. So both the Penske cars were trying to make a major pass at the end of the straightaway.
So our second caution, as we have now completed the 22 of 85 laps, and you can see that the crews are getting the damaged vehicle out. Elio is inside that safety vehicle. He'll make the mandatory trip to the infield care center. We'll get an update on his condition as soon as we can.
And for Paul Tracy, he likes to see this yellow right now because he gets to conserve a little bit of fuel. And if things work out his way, he's going to try and maybe just get it done in one more stop.
Well, and this definitely puts him within his window for one more stop now at lap 23, based on what we've heard calculation-wise, correct?
Well, he has...
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll delve further into that possibility as we will take a break. And we're under our second caution here with just 23 laps complete of 85. Earlier this morning, the Firestone Indy Lights had their race, and J.K. Vernet, for the 4th time this year in 7 races, held off Dan Clark and the rest of the field to pick up the win. As you can see, the top 5. Congratulations to J.K. Vernet and the Sam Schmidt team as they win again here at Toronto. Under caution because of Elio Castroneves' incident, he has caught up, or I should say Jamie Little has caught up with him.
Well, the good news for Elio, he walked himself over here and bypassed the medical center. Elio, what happened?
Well, certainly car was fantastic. Oh my goodness, we had a supercar today, and I guess new tires were giving me a great confidence to brake, and I think Vitor, when you're running back there, you brake a little early, and I was not expecting he braking that early. I was using the push to pass, trying to go inside, but when he closed it in, I said I'm gonna go outside, but I was not expecting he braking that early, and obviously ended up clipping my my right front tire, and the race is over for us. So if you can see it tuck in inside, I'm like, okay, he's gonna give not gonna give, I'm gonna go outside, but when he brakes so early, I'm like, wow, I did not expect. It's like suddenly the guy stopped in front of you, but you know, it's, I can't believe it. This place it's love and hate. I love this place. Okay, every year we actually fast, but unfortunately we always have a DNF. So, well, let's go thinking about next year. Hopefully not have a DNF.
Hey, on the bright side, last year it was booed by the fans. This year you took the lead and they all applauded.
That's right. Hey, boos, applaud. Well, both of them were DNF. I want to change next year.
Well, Elio's talking about DNFs. 5 of the last 6 races here, he has DNF'd, Marty.
It's his second DNF of the season. He came into the race 5th in points, 22 ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay. Ryan will have to finish in the top 3 to overtake Elio today in the points championship. All right, let's reset it for you. Paul Tracy stayed out. Vitor Meira stayed out. Dario Franchitti is 3rd. Will Power 4th. Justin Wilson rounds out your top 5. You saw on side-by-side, Mario Romancini was really the only taker on pit lane as far as this last caution as we're getting ready to go back to green flag racing. Paul Tracy again in front of the hometown fans. Brings them around as we get ready to work on lap number 26. And we are back to green flag racing here in the streets of Toronto.
Now for Paul Tracy and Vitor Meira, who's aboard the ABC machine, both those guys are running on tires that are well used from 3rd place on backwards. Dario and Franchitti, they all have pit and have those fresh tires, so theoretically they should be quicker. And right now Alex Lloyd with his rear wing and rear suspension off, Marty.
So he has a crash, and it looked like it was one of Eric Bachelot's cars that was also involved, and you can see exactly where that is, right down at turn number 1. And again, we're going to go back to full course caution. So after running pretty clean early in this race, we're having 3 quick cautions. And now, again, we got to talk fuel strategy, because this has definitely got to open up some windows of opportunities for people if they want to try and make this on one more stop, right?
Well, and for Paul Tracy, again, he is smiling because he has to try and conserve fuel to get through as many laps as he possibly can. And if you can get 30 on a tank full, roughly, they're saying underneath green, and we have had quite a few yellow laps right now. So we'll have to see exactly when he feels he needs to come in for fuel, but he will try and stretch it out. And no doubt, every yellow that he sees, he's going to be very thankful, because if he can get this done in one more stop, everybody has to stop one more time, Marty. So it just might play even for everyone.
Well, looking out our vantage point down here along pit lane, there is nobody really set up. And there's the damage, and it's Alex Lloyd as he is in the Homaltro safety team vehicle. He'll make the mandatory trip. Let's get an update from pit lane on strategy. Rick DeBrule.
Well, in fact, listening to Nick Harvey and Paul Tracy, Nick Harvey being the strategist for Tracy this weekend, they actually want green flag racing. They want the yellow flags to end. What they'd like from right now is for it to go green flag the rest of the way, so that everybody has to make a green flag stop, and everybody in essence would end up being on the same strategy. They think that's what would give them the advantage. Yes, it does stretch out his fuel window. At one point they were figuring they were good for about another 10 laps of green flag racing, but as they were talking to it on the radio just a moment ago, Nick Harvey told Paul Tracy, what we really want are green flag laps. We got to get these guys so that they can race, so they can get the green flag going, and then put everybody in the same strategy. But that only pays off if there aren't any more yellows.
You like that call?
Well, it's a different way of looking at it, but I have to say that I think it's the same both ways that you cut it. I guess Paul's been out there for a fair amount of time, so I would think that he would want to find the yellows just to make sure he can get only one more stop.
Pits will be open this time. We'll find out what everybody else is going to do. Justin Wilson led the first 17 laps. Paul Tracy, for the first time in his Eyes Out IndyCar career, is leading laps here at his home track of Toronto. He has now led a total of 10. And as we said, this time by, pit lane is open, and we'll find out if there are going to be any takers here as we're about to complete lap number 28. And again, so far from that view, you can tell nobody has come in. So it looks like we're going to find out how this stretch. There goes one coming into pit lane. As we get ready to step aside, we'll tell you this. We'll be back from Toronto after this word from our ABC stations. Still under our third caution here on the streets of Toronto, and lost in the shuffle of the crash involving Alex Lloyd right before the yellow. Take a look and watch what happens. Dario Franchitti, that's Vitor Meira right in the middle of this sandwich.
And then Elio talked about how early Vitor Meira was braking going down that long back straightaway into turn 3, and we saw that there, that he's on the brakes a lot earlier than everyone else, and they can get some passes completed.
And that was Dario Franchitti, and also there Will Power making a pass. That's a very difficult place to get around. And he moves into third. Franchitti now into second behind Paul Tracy. Here's another view.
And for right now for Vitor Mir, he's lucky he didn't get hit in the back and sort of sent down the escape road. Will Power did a great job on making sure he didn't do that to him.
And there is the pass. I can't remember the last time we saw in 2 years a pass there in turn 5.
Oh, and I've been around this track numerous times. It's very difficult. And when you come off a restart, you hope that your car has grip. And if your car's not working for you, and I have to say right now, Vitor's car probably does not have as much grip as the leader, so that's why they didn't get that pass completed.
All right, let's talk a little bit more strategy involving Paul Tracy, Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, sitting here with Nick Harvey, who's the strategist. Let's talk about what the plan is. You were saying you really want as many green flag laps, and yet why not yellow? Hopefully do it on just one stop.
Well, if we can stretch the field, I mean, we were further down in the field, so we had to go off strategy with what the leaders are doing to make it work. Now we need a green flag so we can stretch the field out, so when we pit, we don't come out of the back again. We come in midfield. Right now, we just hope it stays green a long time, so when we pit under green, so do the leaders when they have to pit again, and then it'll all cycle out and work out.
All right, let's talk about tire status. I mean, those tires have been on there a long time. How are they doing?
Well, I'd prefer to have new ones. But he's keeping them under there. We got a little bit of push in the car, but he's dealing with it really well. And the good news is that they're hot, and it's PT in Toronto, so I'll take that every time.
All right, so they're confident about their man up there. They just need a little luck to make it all work, Marty.
All right, thank you, Rick. And of course, Paul Tracy racing in front of his hometown. We talked to him.
For me, it's the biggest race of the year for me. Obviously, there's always been a lot of pressure from, you know, not only myself. You know, there's nobody that puts any more pressure than I put on myself to do well here. But you know, there's always a lot of media pressure to do well, the hometown guys to do well.
And as we get ready to come back to racing, here we go through turn number 11. Green flag flies, and Paul Tracy leads the field. That's Franchitti with Will Power right behind him. Vitor Mir is in fourth. And boy, Justin Wilson on those red tires. He's the only one in the top 13 that's on the alternate reds, and he wants to get around Vitor.
Has to do it cleanly because he probably have seen that Vitor's having problem under braking. Now Vitor waits to the very last minute.
Pass for the lead, as you saw Dario Franchitti get around Paul Tracy. So that'll be our third different leader. Here's Will Power right on the back wing of the 15. Oh, and another crash. It looks like the 34 is in. That's Mario Romancini. He had just taken a pit stop on this last caution, and there he is. It's local, but unless they get him refired, they are going to have to bring out the full course caution once again. Race leader Dario Franchitti coming to start finish right now.
Oh, this is going to turn into a full course caution with the safety vehicle out there at the end of the straightaway. Have to.
And it just flies. So now we have our fourth full course caution here at Toronto. So, boy, after a very good opening stretch of laps, we have now had 12 full laps of caution. Here's the replay.
Congestion again going down here into turn 3. And once again, if you can believe, in this scenario for KV Racing is not having a whole lot of luck here, because Mario Moraes is going to come down here and just sort of push everyone around and cause this collision.
Moraes able to keep going. Dan Weldon's able to stay out of the fray, but unfortunately for Romancini, the wheel's off and he's climbing out.
And they always say that yellows breed yellows, and I'm going to go against the thinking here. I guess if I am Paul Tracy right now and I'm up here and running, if I can just get a lot more yellows and then still everybody has to have one stop, at least I'm still at the front of the grid. Maybe both strategies will work.
Well, we're going to find out as this continues to unfold. Hopefully we're going to get some more green flag racing here on the streets of Toronto. It's been a yellow fest for about the last 13. We're going side by side.
Here in Toronto, well, Paul Tracy and his team, they finally called Uncle. They realized they could only get a couple laps of green flag racing after this yellow. As a result, they brought him in. They've got to hold him a little bit, get the fuel in. They're going to go ahead and put on the new tires and send them back out. Hopefully the last time they'll have to do this. They've got to have obviously a problem with the fuel, getting it all in there, Vince.
Well, Vitor Meira, AJ Foyt has talked to him about his braking. They had brake issues yesterday, and it seems as though Vitor is braking much earlier, certainly, than what AJ would like for him to brake. And they've talked about the fact that, are the brakes working okay? Vitor seems to think that they are, but we've seen a couple of instances where he has been braking much earlier than the car behind him, causing a little bit of an issue. So we'll keep our eye on that situation, Marty.
And they quickly catch up to the back of the field as we're about to get ready to go back to green flag racing. We can't tell you that IndyCar officials have levied a penalty against Mario Moraes. He'll have a drive-through after we go green for the avoidable contact, which he did not avoid. Well, it seems like it was a long, long time ago. In fact, it was 2 cautions ago when Alex Lloyd had his issues, and Jamie Little's caught up with him.
And he is okay. He walked out here to pit road, and 2 weeks in a row, unfortunately, Alex, we're meeting like this. Leads me to ask, what is going on out there right now?
I don't know. I mean, for us, we think something may have broken because it was pretty sudden, just kind of going down the straight, and then just before braking to turn 1, it just started doing 360s down the straight. So something happened there. We'll have to take a look at it, see what happened. But it's slippery out there, and people are racing hard, and it gets bottlenecked up at some of these turns, and so it's not easy, but people are making a hard job of it so far.
All right, we've gone back to green, Marty.
They certainly have. Down into turn number 1. As you watch, we'll reset it. Franchitti, Power, Wilson, Hunter Ray, Tony Kanaan. That's your top 5. Will we survive turn 3? Keep your fingers crossed. We're working lap number 36. Taking a look, that's Dixon trying to get under Kanaan, thinks better of it. A little further back, that's Danica Patrick with Alex Tagliani. That's a battle for 9th on the racetrack.
And you saw the push-to-pass graphic for a few of the drivers using it going down the straightaway. Sometimes that's even used in defensive mode to make sure that the driver behind you does not get passed.
Somebody who's used it the most is Danica Patrick as she goes zooming by there. She's used it now. She's down to 9 remaining out of the 15.
Marty, you mentioned out of this whole group, the only one that's on those red alternate tires is 3rd place, Justin Wilson. So what he'd like to be able to do is maybe take advantage of the grip of those tires because they do come in a little quicker and maybe get past some cars directly in front of him.
Tagliani able to hold off Danica. Rafa Matos trying to put some pressure on the 7 car. And then Graham Rahal. And we go on board with Danica, and you can actually watch her footwork.
Hard on the gas because we have shift on the go here. She uses the paddle shifters. Not like the old days of lifting your foot to make a gear change. Oh, and just tries to slide on the inside of Alex Tagliani. Does not get it done. She'll be hard on the brakes here in a second into turn 5. Back on the gas. Might work the throttle just a little bit going through turn 6 here. Hesitancy, and then she's finally on it. You can see going down through the gears now, down to 2nd gear. See how slow some of these turns are. You want to get your foot on the gas as quickly as possible to get that acceleration out of the turn. You see that turn there is not very good for her, turn 10 and 11, so she had made a bottleneck of everybody there in turn 10, Vince Welsh.
Danica Patrick's had an oversteer problem throughout much of this weekend. That means the car has been very loose. She hasn't had a comfortable feel with it. They put more downforce in the car for qualifying, and it was better. Took the downforce back out for the morning warm-up. It was loose again. So they put about 3/4 amount of that downforce back in the car today. She says it's much more manageable here in the race. They did give her a little front wing because of some understeer in that first stop, but otherwise a pretty comfortable car, at least in regards to how it's been throughout the course of the weekend for Danica.
And as you finish up, Vince, we were watching some great action going on between Tony Kanaan and Scott Dixon, and they gave each other enough space. No collision, but boy, Dixon trying to just get past the 11 of Tony Kanaan, and Kanaan's making it as difficult as possible.
And a lot of respect between those 2 drivers there, because maybe other drivers without as much experience could have caused a collision there right in the center of turn 3.
While all this is going on, remember we told you about Paul Tracy as he came in for a pit stop. He is now in 17th position, 15 seconds behind the race lead. Now, we've also just heard from race control that the 11 of Tony Kanaan has been warned about his race line in the driver's meeting. They were talking about where you had to be, and he does move over this time. And now the 9 of Scott Dixon makes the pass.
And under braking, a nice, smooth, clean pass, and Dixon set him up perfectly. But what they were saying is that the 11 car of Tony Kanaan was not moving over to set himself up for the entry to turn 3 as early as he would if he was driving by himself. A bit of a defensive line there by Tony Kanaan.
So Dixon's now 5th, bump Kanaan back to 6th. Our race leader is Dario Franchitti. He's our 3rd different leader here today as we have completed 38 of 85 laps. Stay with us. We're going to go side by side.
Basically, that when he came in and parked, he was just too far out, just a little bit, because of the way the curve in is a tight end, so they couldn't quite get the fuel to connect quite right. So something about being too far out is what created the problem.
Okay, did he get a full tank full of fuel?
He did get a full tank full of fuel, but it just took a long time.
Yeah, okay. And he didn't really lose that much because everybody had already gone past. Right. It was under yellow.
I'm just surprised he didn't go longer. We had 13, 14 laps of yellow, and he still came in at lap 34. They were making that when they're running green.
Wipe up. Tuesday, can the wildest character survive TV's most terrifying obstacle course? It's high-flying hijinks when the wackiest and most daring contestants take on the Shapeshifter, the Wrecking Balls, and Shake-a-Rator. It's an all-new ABC's Wipeout, Tuesday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central on ABC. Caution a few laps ago as you watch the racers up front on the lead, Dario Franchitti and Will Power. That was Mario Romancini who was involved in that, and Romancini is with Jamie Little.
And he's been patiently standing here, but you're pretty fired up at Mario Moraes. What led to the contact?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know what was he thinking, because we were like he was 5 cars linked behind me. I even had Weldon between me and him, and I think he missed his brakes and just took me out. So it's a shame. I'm really sorry for the guys. We had a problem on the first pit stop, so we went to the back. But the car was pretty good, so I think we had a good opportunity to move up. But it's part of racing. I mean, now we have to think about the next one, and hopefully it will be better.
Thank you for your time. That's the second driver today, guys, that crashed, and they blamed it on Moraes, so you know the league is watching the 32 car.
Thank you, Jamie. As we're watching the battle up front, because Dario Franchitti now, the 8th race this season that Dario has led, his 6th consecutive race. The only 2 races he hasn't been a leader, Barber and Long Beach.
And they get a
Franchitti and Power running about 4/10 of a second. We're working our way back further in the field. There is Paul Tracy with Dan Weldon right behind him. That is a battle for 17th. Now remember, we talked about when he did make that pit stop, he had a bit of an issue. Rick, what was the final result?
Well, unfortunately, the good news is he got all the fuel in. Unfortunately, the problem is that he pulled into the pits, and he pulled in just a little too far from the wall. That's what created the problem. You can see the view from over there. It's just a long way for them to go over. They say part of the problem is the fact that they're pitting on the curve. He didn't nail it just right. As a result, you can see the fueler having a hard time getting it in just right. Ultimately, they did get it in. They did get the fuel in, but it made for a very long pit stop.
And had that been under green, it would have been much more costly than it was. As we said, right now running in 17th position ahead of Dan Weldon and Vitor Meira. They are now 22 seconds, though, behind the race lead. So he is losing contact if he with the guys that are running up front, as Dario Franchitti, Will Power, and Justin Wilson are your top three.
Paul Tracy, when he didn't get into the Indy 500, he came up here to do some promotion for the Toronto event, Marty, and when he went to leave, his passport had expired. So he was not able to leave town, had to get his passport done, and for most people it might take 2 weeks, but for Paul, it only took a day, and he was off back home to the States within 48 hours.
Let's check in now on our Firestone lap leaders. We've had a total of 3 different leaders. You see Justin Wilson's led the most, the first 17. Paul Tracy led 14, and now Dario Franchitti has led 13 and counting, but only by half a second over Will Power and 1.4 seconds over Justin Wilson. There you see the top 3. They've opened up a bit of a gap over Ryan Hunter-Reay in 4th, Scott Dixon in 5th, Tony Kanaan in 7th, and on further back through the field. Good battle right now, though, between those 3. Going to try something a little bit different for you. Let's do an all-onboard up to speed. Jamie Little, you are with Dario Franchitti's crew.
Our leader, well, he's had an eventful few days here in Toronto so far. He's been struggling with the balance of this car, and basically the team told me they changed everything but the engine. Well, they took care of that as well. After final practice today, he got himself a new engine, started 5th, and he's been so good. Chip Ganassi, team owner, rarely gets on the radio saying, great job, great passes, stay on it. Vince?
Ryan Hunter-Reay is currently running in 4th position in that 37 car. Hunter-Reay hasn't been completely happy with his car throughout the course of the weekend, but I spoke with him before the race, and he was actually pretty pleased at this point. So going into the race with a car that you're happy with is a big advantage. He said this course is very tough. You're on edge all the time. You race it like your hair is on fire, if you can imagine that. Marco Andretti running in 8th place. Marco was 8th here last year. Of course, his dad, Michael, won here 7 times. We talked to Marco in the pre-race. If you were with us, he told us, my car is good. He's been happy with it so far in the race here today. Marco Andretti still working his way toward the front. Rick? We're going to stick with Danica.
Go ahead, Vince.
Going to stick with Danica Patrick, and Danica also, they put in a turn of front wing in her car earlier today in that first pit stop to correct a little bit of an understeer issue, which has been different than what she's been dealing with throughout the course of the weekend. Her car's been loose most of the time. You know, she wants to be able to have a car she can drive, a car she can feel, not to fight it. And much of this season, she hasn't had that confident feel with the car. These road courses, these tough street courses aren't her best layout, but she's had a pretty solid run so far here today, Rick.
Well, let's talk about Paul Tracy. What an up and down weekend he's had. Slow out of the box, all kinds of problems. They discovered that problem after qualifying, were able to fix it. Then on that alternate fuel strategy, they were running up front, and then they came in, had the problem with the pit stop. As a result, it's kind of been up and down. The good news is no matter what happens, they're raising a lot of money for Make-A-Wish in Canada on his driver's suit. Hundreds of names, all people who signed up to be a part of that, to raise money for Make-A-Wish. And no matter what happens for Paul Tracy this weekend, they're raising a good cause. Vince?
Dan Weldon running 18th. It's been an eventful day for Weldon. You know, he had that contact on lap 1 with the KV car. They had to come in, put a new front wing and nose assembly on it. He also had a little bit of an issue later in the race, nearly having contact. They did put a couple of turns of front wing in the car. This is a track that is very difficult on this team, not just from a driver's standpoint, but from an engineering standpoint as well. They really feel like they're playing catch-up when they come here to Toronto. They want to just get a good, solid finish here this week and next week in Edmonton. Remember, last week they recovered from an early spin and still salvaged a 6th place finish. If they could do something like that today, it would be huge. huge, Marty.
All right, thank you, team. As we have now got 38 laps to go, we're past the halfway mark. You see our race leader, Dario Franchitti, now with a 7/10 of a second lead over Will Power, with Justin Wilson now 2.2 seconds behind. He is, remember, the only one in the top 10 that is running on the red alternates right now. As from high above, you get a great view. There's your top 5 after 47 laps. We'll be back with more after this from our ABC stations. Back here, we're under green, and we have stayed green for quite a while. We've had a total of 4 cautions for 14 of our 50 laps, 35 to go, and we're thinking that the magic number for a lot of these drivers is 30, that they would be able to then make the rest of the distance and be able to take stops. We could tell you and should tell you, Rafa Matos did make a stop a couple laps ago. He is the first that has come in. There are others that are beginning to set up, so this could end up being another one of those fuel strategy races if we stay green.
And for these top 3 drivers right now, Marty, they are so even in time that there's not much difference between all of them. They know they're going to have to make some really quick in-laps to be able to maybe gain some space on the car in front. Need some great work by their pit crews and a great outlap. But it's all going to come down to track position here because all 3 drivers right now seem to be so equal.
Jamie?
And Ryan Briscoe is in. Roger Penske making the call. It was 4 tires. He put on some scuffed blacks and filled it up with fuel, guys.
So Briscoe, the first of Team Penske's 2 remaining cars to break off the chase. That was also Alex Tagliani that you saw. Another one of the KV racing machines as well was in. That was EJ Viso. So they have made their stops. Meanwhile, up front, the race leaders continue to pound the pavement here in Toronto. Franchitti is now a 7/10 of a second lead over Will Power. Vitor Meira coming out of pit lane.
Now for Dario Franchitti, he sees that he's coming down into turn 1. He hopes that he can clear Vitor by the time he gets himself going into turn 3 at the end of the straightaway. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Now with Vitor with cold tires, he's going to have to make sure he can get quickly through that back section, not to hold him up.
Vince, it's all yours.
Danica Patrick missed her marks just a bit. The front tire changer had to adjust. Her average finish on the road and street courses has been 15th, but she's had a manageable race car today. 4 sticker blacks for Danica. Good stop.
And despite that little glitch, 6.8 seconds in the box, pretty good time. Meanwhile, back out front, race leaders continue at this torrid pace that they have set. Franchitti and Will Power, followed by Justin Wilson. It's going to be interesting to see the combination of tires, what they go back to when they make this final stop. Dan Weldon has made his stop here, so he comes back out onto the track. That's Vitor Meira going by, the 06 of Hideki Muto, and there is your race leaders.
It's always a bottleneck down there, but right now, Franchitti, Power, and Wilson, those guys are really trying to put their laps down, and it seems like Will Power is gaining ever slightly on Franchitti. He's gaining about a 10th a lap because he knows he's got to get as close as possible coming up to this round of pit stops.
A lot of traffic in front of the race leaders right now. And might be a good time, shall you say, to take a pit stop, because that's what we're hearing. Maybe the 10's going to call him off because you can't gain any ground when you got 3 cars in front of you.
And exactly, and if they think that they're close to be able to make it in their fuel window, they'll certainly do that.
Next time by, there will be 31 laps to go. Remember, we said the window was somewhere between 28 and 32, depending on what kind of mileage you were getting. The 10 car, does he pull off? Yes. So race leader Dario Franchitti surrenders the lead to Will Power as he makes his way down 60 miles an hour. Pit lane here, and they're all the way at the far end. Let's send it to Jamie Little.
Well, this is officially the first time this week, and I have not heard Dario complaining about the balance of his race car. Says it is good. Now remember, he has led the most laps this season, and he continues to lead. He, of course, gave up the lead for this stop, put on 4 blacks, and it looked like a pretty quick stop, 6.8 seconds, filled it up with fuel. No changes for Dario Franchitti.
And he's led the most laps today so far, 22, and now we've had our 4th different leader because Will Power assumes the top spot, with now Justin Wilson just 4/10 of a second behind him, and they too have the same issue. They still have these slower cars in front of them.
And that was a great call by Target Chip Ganassi team for Dario Franchitti.
We'll find out when these guys make their stops just how good a call that possibly could have been, because if these two were slowed down markedly, then it could create a problem. But we're going to get our answer pretty quickly, because now they both peel off. Will Power in front of Justin Wilson. Let's send it to Vince Welch. He's got the 22.
They're going to put scuffed reds on for Justin Wilson. This team has been second at both Long Beach and St. Petersburg, but they felt like they had a winner today. You saw a little bit of front wing for Wilson. We'll see if he can finish. Jamie.
And Will Power in the #1 pit box. 4 tires put on blacks. He can see the race up. And oh my gosh, it was close on pit road, guys. Justin Wilson just gets by the 12 car.
And now the question is, and the best part is, there comes Dario Franchitti, so it really did not hurt him that extra lap. And boy, did Justin take advantage of the situation.
Absolutely, because he got out first in front of Will Power. Now watch for this pass. He knows he has to get it done and set his sights on Justin Wilson. And Power's got the inside line. He very smartly came through there and kept to the right-hand side of the racetrack.
So now Justin Wilson back where he started this race, out front, right behind the 12 of, you've got the 12 of Will Power, and then also Dario Franchitti. Now remember, we should also point out, I'm talking about this group. We have other cars that have to cycle through pit stops. So really, the race leader right now is Tony Kanaan. And oh, we have problems down in turn 3 again, as the 36 has stuffed it. That's Bertrand Baguette. Now that is a local yellow. Now Kanaan, Andretti, Rahal, they have not made their stop. So technically and officially, they are first, second, and third. There goes Tony Kanaan past the scene. They're keeping it a local yellow. Paul Tracy's in. Vince? I'm sorry, Rick?
Paul Tracy has brought his car in. Remember, they were trying to go with that different strategy. Obviously, now they've decided to pit with the leaders and kind of go for the rest of the way.
Still a local caution. So Kanaan continues, but remember, they still have to pit. What was so dramatic was watching that battle with Wilson, Power, and Franchitti, and they are still going to be locked into it. Right now it is Kanaan, Andretti, and Rahal. And here comes Tony Kanaan as he finally makes his stop. Vince, he's coming your way.
Tony Kanaan been pretty happy with the race car. You see him there in that unfamiliar blue and white. We're used to seeing him in the all green, but 4 red scuffed tires, no chassis changes for Tony Kanaan in his last stop.
8.1 seconds, a lot slower than a couple of the other cars that we saw. And there is Graham Rahal coming out, and there you see Marco Andretti. Rick?
I just want to talk about the fact that Graham Rahal's been having a great run. At one point, he was behind Danica Patrick, wasn't able to get by. When she came in, they decided to leave him out. And each lap, they kept saying, one more lap, doing that old Michael Schumacher trick of trying to do fast laps on a light fuel load. They kept him out a few more runs. As a result, when he came in, he was actually running in 3rd position. So far, though, he's actually very happy with his car.
Okay, and those pit stops are cycling through. As you see, Rahal diving underneath the 26 of Andretti. Look out. Oh, that was so close. It is now officially Wilson in front, Power second, Franchitti second, or third, Dixon in 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's made their second and probably last stop. Matos could be in trouble. right, we've had some exciting action here through the round of green flag pit stops, and Justin Wilson has opened up now a 3-second lead over Will Power. He put on those scuffed reds, and it looked like he had a rocket underneath him as he has just opened it up. And now 3.6 seconds to Power. And Dario Franchitti third, Scott Dixon fourth, and Ryan Hunter-Reay rounding out your top 5.
Well, for Justin Wilson, he had some help by the 32 of Mario Moraes, who actually held up Will Power and Franchitti before he finally moved over and let those 2 guys go by. So that's giving Justin Wilson a chance to extend his lead.
There you can see the margin as they come through turn number 5, heading for 6, which is the right-hander. Oh no, and Briscoe has crashed. Heading down into turn number 3, so 2 of 3 Penske machines are, well, 1 is definitely out, and Briscoe may be out. It could be. He could get back, and if it's just the nose.
I can't think of any time like this year that we've had so many mishaps with Penske cars. And I think it just goes to show you how tough the competition is.
So far, still a local caution. Let's get a quick update on Ryan Briscoe's situation. Jamie, what are you hearing?
Well, just before you saw him go off course there, it was actually about a lap and a half before, Ryan came on the radio and said this car is so difficult to drive. Before his last pit stop, he said the front end was getting heavy, but he seems to think that the car may be okay. Roger Penske on the radio saying, tell them to restart you and get you going. Look for him to come back down pit road to check it out. Here's the replay of the 6 car.
Well, he got jacked up from behind. And that was Graham Rahal that got into it. So Roger Penske will see that, and he'll figure out why. And
well, and also Briscoe wasn't really on the very left-hand side of the racetrack. His left, our right, going into the turn, running a bit of defensive line, and I'm sure that Rahal thought that he was going to move over and set himself up for the turn. And they talked about that in the driver's meeting. When you come down, you run your normal line. We don't want you on the inside half of the track.
So, Team Penske is down to 1 bullet, and that is Will Power, the man who's won 3 times this year, and he's got to chase down Justin Wilson. Well, back here at the race leader, there is your race leader. As we take a look at our Firestone lap leader, Justin Wilson has taken over the most laps led, as you can see, by 3 and counting over Dario Franchitti. We've had a total of 5 different leaders with 5 lead changes in today's race. Oh no, we've got another crash. Oh, it is Matos, and now the 20th incident involving a KV racing machine, and that looks like the 8 of Viso, or...
Yeah, they were running together on the course, so one's going to presume that EJ, who's had a good weekend here, he's been running up in the top 5. Thought he might have a shot at the top 6 in qualifying, but just didn't get that portion of it done.
You can see exactly where the race leader is in. Oh no, and Paul Tracy, something happened to him. I don't see any damage on the car, but this is going to cost him a lot of position. He was running in 17th. That is down in the turn 3 section. He's trying to get the Maltro safety crew to fire the engine so he can get back into the battle, and they do. There's Ryan Briscoe, as you saw on side by side. He got a new front wings assembly. And Rafa is climbing out. Let's go back and take a look and see what happened.
All the cars spreading through here, and Danica Patrick sliding on the inside of her teammate Marco Andretti. And then with the bottleneck there, it looks like Alex Tagliani was trying to get past Rafa Matos. And in the end result, he gets into the wall. And then we're going to end up finding what's going on with Tracy. Hard on the brakes coming into the turn. Looks like he's overcooking it just sideways. And good thing he didn't take out Simone Di Silvestro, because he was just really out of control.
On board with the Paul Tracy as we go to break, and Simona, she's running 12th right now, as that was the battle at the time, and Paul has fallen back. We'll be back with more after this from our ABC stations.
Back on the streets of Toronto, the IZOD IndyCar Series still under caution after that multiple car incident, but one thing that has not been in question today is the performance of the 22 car of Justin Wilson. For Ryan Reinbold, dominated the early stages of the race, back in front again. Larry Curry, you came in, you had 1 lap on those red tires that you put on his car. You've got enough fuel to the end. You gave him a little front wing. Any concerns at all as we tick off these final laps here from the front of the field?
You're always concerned when you got Will Power and Dario Franchitti sitting behind you, but I think Justin's got a good enough horse to pull this off. So we're in good shape on our tires. We've ran far enough so the Z-Line car is ready to go, and he'll go finish the deal.
What's been the key for you guys this weekend? You've been so good from the time you rolled off the truck.
We had to have a bit of a regroup after we all came out of Watkins Glen very disappointed. We went home, got everybody together and talked about it and said we got to get better, but it isn't just on the performance on the racetrack, it's in the pits, it's everywhere. So our first pit stop, we lost a few positions. The second one, we beat them out. So I think the message got across.
Indeed, it's been a total team effort for the Dreyer and Reinbold unit here today. Justin Wilson continues to lead on the streets of Toronto. The finish of the race is just ahead as we go side by side on ABC.
All right, let's set up the calendar for you because the Fram Autolite NHRA Nationals tonight, 6 Eastern on ESPN2. Then NASCAR Now tomorrow at 5 Eastern on ESPN2. NASCAR Nationwide Series is at O'Reilly Raceway Park in Indy Saturday evening, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. And then, of course, our Sprint Cup Series coverage begins with the Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral next Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN. And the Eyes on IndyCar Series is at Edmonton next Sunday, 5 Eastern. With our friends at Versus. We're going to take one more quick break because we're still under our 5th caution here at Toronto. Stay with us. Back here in the streets of Toronto, coming through turn 11, the race leader, Justin Wilson, as we go back to green flag racing with now 14 laps to go as we go across the stripe. Will Power trying on the outside, and boy, does he get a great pass.
That was a result of Justin Wilson trying to get on the gas through 10 and 11. The back end stepped out from underneath him. Now he's going to have his work cut out for him to try and get past Will Power.
Power, who has won 3 times this year on the road and street courses, takes the lead away on this restart. Dario Franchitti third. Look at the action back in the back, trying to squeeze through. Ryan Hunter-Reay on their contact with Scott Dixon, and Dixon's into the wall. Is there serious damage, or can he continue? Look at Tony Kanaan weaving his way, trying to get around his teammate. So far, no view of the number 9. Dixon is still in that corner, we're being told by officials. And there he is. And yes, there's damage. So for Scott Dixon, who is 3rd in the points coming into this race, he has got damage on that right front suspension. Oh, it's Justin Wilson is turned around. That is at the exit of turn number 8. He gets it spun around, back on course, and all of a sudden, this race has changed dramatically. You see where the race leader is. Scott Dixon's trying to limp his way back to the pits. And Will Power now has about a 1-second lead over Dario Franchitti.
And yellow caution periods with the restarts to follow always can change the complexion of the race. And certainly that happened here for those 2 drivers.
Ryan Hunter-Reay right there with Tony Kanaan right behind him. The 6 of Ryan Briscoe. Briscoe is 2 laps down, however. A little bit further back, Graham Rahal is running 5th now. Danica Patrick is up to 6th.
And I'm not sure that Ryan Hunter-Reay maybe doesn't have a little damage on his car because it seems like he has problems putting the power down. Back end wants to step out from underneath him. Now Tony Kanaan will see that, and he'll just have to time his pass correctly so he can get around him.
And there is the damage on the left front suspension, the wing assembly on the number 9 of Scott Dixon.
I remember having a conversation at Barber Motorsport Park with Scott Dixon earlier in the year at the test there, and he said, if I'm going to win the championship, we have to have a mistake-free season. This will cost him dearly in the points championship.
If he cannot get back out, this would be the 2nd DNF of the year, and it looks like this one could be pretty much terminal because that suspension is really bent. While all that continues, we're still trying to find out. Oh, now more trouble. As is Thomas Schechter in the 24 and the 77 of Alex Tagliani. And again, we've got an issue down in turn number 1. So we're trying to, as I mentioned just before this one happened, we're trying to find any video as we get a full course caution. And it is now our 6th. We had 5 last year. All right, first, let's show you what happened with Scott Dixon as they head for turn 3.
In this scenario here, he gets into the middle of the turn. You can see actually on the right-hand side, you got Ryan Hunter-Reay. And Dixon saw him coming because he gave him room, but Ryan Hunter-Reay really used a bit too much room on the exit and just punted Dixon into the wall. And you can see right now, Scott Dixon does not have any steering whatsoever. He's trying to get himself back. And give him credit for not causing a full course yellow. He got the thing into reverse and was able to get himself around into pit lane.
All right, let's see what happened to Justin Wilson. Take us back on, this will be our first look at this. And there he is. Coming through the corner. Oh.
Looks like he was carrying his speed in too far. From that angle that we look at, he was quite a ways away from the inside of the wall, which is the apex. You can see he's just a couple cars ahead. Just a little bit wide on the back section, but the back end seems to come around for some reason. That was just a lot of oversteer on entry to the turn.
And he was on the concrete, and the guys have told us it's like being on ice. If anything goes wrong, and here's what happened on the third and final incident, all on the same lap, basically. Here we are heading down to turn one.
You know, in this scenario right now, I mean, this sport is really becoming a contact sport. Two cars going to go for the same piece of real estate, and in the end result, you take them both out.
On board with Marco Andretti, and he says, thank you guys, I'll pass both of you. All right, so now you know exactly what happened to all of them, and we've still got 11 laps to go. We had 5 cautions for 15 laps. This year we're at 6 with 20, but there's your race leader. Can he make it 4 in a row? Stay with us. There are 4 wins on the season. We've just gone back to green flag racing now with 9 laps remaining on the streets of Toronto. It has been an event filled with action, as we have had incidents all around this race course. That is Paul Tracy. He is right now 1 lap down in 13th position. A total of 12 cars on the lead lap. Justin Wilson, who was leading this race for 32 laps of it, is the last car on that lead lap. And look at the battle up front. It is Will Power trying to hold off Dario Franchitti, Ryan Hunter-Reay. Then 4th is Tony Kanaan, Graham Rahal 5th, and Danica Patrick in 6th. We're on board with Ryan.
You can see how you have to move this car around so quickly. The transitions have to be good for your race car just to get back from one side to the other. You saw in the start, Will Power really starting to slide the back end of the car around. He knows he has to give himself some space to Dario Franchitti, because if Franchitti's somewhat close going down that backstretch, he will have the opportunity for a draft. And I think Will Power has had mission accomplished because he has now made that gap.
Well, and what's really great about this is just by the way the cars were lined up during when the caution came out, these 4, the top 4, were nose to tail. Now there are lapped vehicles till we get back further back, another few seconds, 2.5 seconds to be exact, as we go down that backstretch. Watch the bumps from the nose cam of Ryan Hunter race car.
Top gear over 170 miles an hour, hard on the brakes. Down to first gear, this is 40 miles an hour. You see the back end of the car of Dario Franchitti sliding around, and here we go. Looks like rush hour time.
Yeah, look out as they're too wide going through the corner. Somebody thought better of it, pulled back in. Simona Di Silvestro, she's in this mix as well. Simona's got a great run going. There she is. She is now up to 8th position. For more on Simona, let's get an update from Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, this has been a weekend of extremes. I got to tell you, I listened to the radio with Simona and her crew all weekend long. She just was frustrated, trying to get as much grip as she could, not able to get it. You know, really, this is a phenomenal run for her. She finished 14th at Indy. She was the rookie of the year. She led her very first race. But this, if she could finish in this position, would by far be her top finishing position.
Right now, as we mentioned, 8th position. Marco Andretti is almost a second in front of her. A lot of lap traffic. There is Graham Rahal. He's going around the lap vehicle. Ryan Briscoe, Danica Patrick. They are in a battle for 5th position, and Briscoe slams the door on.
Danica needs to get a good run here, just behind the car in front, get a bit of a tow and slipstream out of it, and make a clean pass.
She gets around Briscoe. Marco Andretti, low, lock it up going on, and coming through is Vitor Mirin. Luckily, nobody tags him.
And that was for position because Justin Wilson's marching his way from the back of the grid from his mishap in turn 8. And so for Mira, he was trying to make sure he couldn't complete the pass, drove it in a bit too hard. We know he had problems under braking, You heard that report before, so it just showed up there again.
Wilson up to 9th. You saw him streaking through the screen. While all this goes on, let's catch up with Scott Dixon, Jamie Little.
Well, he's one of the men that was in that battle, and no longer your day is done. Scott, what happened with you and Ryan Hunter-Reay?
Yeah, I made a bit of a bubble coming out of the last whack to the back straight, and he got a bit of a run. Gave him room at the end, and I think he dove in there a little too late. Just carried too much speed, and then obviously he had nowhere to go, and I was on the outside, and it bumped me into the wall. So it's just not our year. Everything that can go wrong, definitely has. But hopefully Dario can still pull a good result out for Team Target.
And it's a broken upright that ends Scott's day, his second DNF of the year. Marty?
Thank you, Jamie. Boy, a lot of action going on here as you head down to turn 3. That's Mariah, Steve Silvestro, Justin Wilson, and everybody else.
Oh, such a tough place, because remember, it's the slowest turn on the race circuit, and Justin Wilson gets on the inside of Simona right there in turn 5.
Well, you know Wilson is kicking himself because he had the best race car until that mistake in turn number 8. He does get around Simona, as you mentioned. He's now up to 8th. Marco Andretti is his next target, but that's over 2 seconds away, and there's only 5 laps remaining.
The car that he's chasing right now is the number 8, DJ Vizo.
Bertrand Baguette. Baguette has a bit of a problem as he turns around. He's a lap down, running in 16th. There's your push to pass, and you can see when it goes green, they are using it. Will Power is using it to stay ahead of Dario Franchitti. He has 4 left. Dario has 6. Tony Kanaan, who just went through the screen, is down to 0. He's used them all. Here's the best battle on the racetrack. That's Justin Wilson, Simona Di Silvestro. The 4 also in that mix of Dan Weldon with Vitor Meira. That is all for position.
A lot of these cars have just soldiered on all day and taken advantage of some of the mishaps from other drivers and teams here, and they've actually been able to get themselves a good result so far.
Meira trying to close in on Simona. He's got his mirrors full of Dan Weldon. Hideki Muto also in this mix. He is 12th. He's the last car on the lead lap. 4 laps remaining here on this 1.75-mile circuit. We've had a total of 6 lead changes between 5 different leaders, and everybody has got the hammer down as they're trying to get as much out of this as far as a result as they can. On board with Dan Weldon.
For him, he's had a difficult weekend here because the car was not that fast off the trailer. They were really looking for speed. Both he and his engineer, I spoke with them, and they said, we're just going to go out there and do the best that we can and try to make the car better as the race continues.
Wow, you saw the 24 Thomas Scheckter go under Hideki Muto, and Scheckter is 1 lap down in 15th.
Thomas Scheckter is a teammate this weekend of Justin Wilson on the Dreyer and Reinbold team, and he's hoping that he has a good enough finish here that he gets himself an opportunity to drive for the team next weekend in Edmonton.
So this is sort of calmed down finally. You go on board one more time with Dan Weldon. That's the gap back to the car that's behind him, Scheckter, and that is not for position. That group comes across start-finish line. Vitor Meira. We're going to switch back to the race lead. We'll pick up. There he is. The number 12 of Will Power. 3 wins. The only driver this year to have multiple victories. And he is right now 0.8 of a second in front.
But Dario Franchitti, that last lap was about 0.3 of a second quicker. So is he going to be able to make up a little time here? But getting close and getting behind the driver is one thing. As we watch the Firestone telemetry here, you can see how he works the throttle. I can tell you that all the drivers are very, very tired right now. This track really punishes you because of the bumps, because of the braking zones, because it is so tough. Hard on the brakes here, going down towards turn 1 where the Princess Gates are. Take through turn 1, onto turn 2, down along Lakeshore Boulevard. Now, he's frustrated right now, Marty, because he can see ahead exactly how far he has to make up. He knows he only has a couple of laps left to go, so now he'll check his mirrors to see how far behind him Ryan Hunter-Reay is and know that he might just have to live with a second-place finish here today.
Every time they go down that long straightaway, they hit that push to pass, and now Power is down to 2. Hunter-Reay is down to 2. Dario Franchitti is down to 4. There's 2 laps remaining.
you know, and perfectly executed by Will Power. You can get very greedy early on in the race and use your push to pass cars and make yourself move up the grid and feel great about it. But, so we're watching the interval right now for this battle for first. Will Power's done the smart thing because he'll push it again when he gets down to turn 1, turn 2, and take advantage of that push to pass all the way down the straight.
White flag is now out for Will Power. He has been spectacular this year on the road and street courses. Won the first 2 right out of the box. Added Watkins Glen just 2 weeks ago, and here he is with the push to pass, hammered down again.
And this wasn't a gift. It's not like Justin Wilson had a mistake. He got past Justin Wilson on the restart and made Justin Wilson drive too hard into turn 8 and caused Justin Wilson to make a mistake. He took advantage of the restart. He's got himself up in front.
Ryan Hunter-Reay looking for another podium finish. Remember, he was our winner at Long Beach. Dario Franchitti, the man that he is chasing, of course, the winner at this year's Indianapolis 500. 7 different winners in 9 races. There were only 6 winners in all of 2009. But boy, the guy who has been the best has been up front today when it counts. Coming out of the last turn, Will Power is going to pick up his 8th career open wheel win and 4th of the season here at Toronto. Behind him, Franchitti, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and Tony Kanaan. Still waiting for Graham Rahal and Danica Patrick to cross the line. There goes Rahal, and there is Danica. And you can see Justin Wilson rallies back after the spin to finish in 7th. Marco Andretti, great run for Simona Di Silvestro. Dan Wheldon rounds out the top 10. So for Will Power, his 2nd win here at Toronto. His other win came back in the Champ Car days of 2007. The 150th career open wheel victory for Roger Penske as a team owner. And Vince, while he makes his way, Will Power to victory lane. There's Clive Howell. Let's talk to him.
Well, Clive, you've had 6 races on the road and street courses this year, and your driver, Will Power's, won 4 of them. What is the quality about this young driver that makes him so outstanding?
I don't know, it's just the talent he has. He can go fast, save fuel when you ask him to. He can go fast when you ask him to, and he's smart too. You know, he knows who he's racing out there today. Put the pressure on Wilson. He spins the car, and we win the race, and we beat Dario at the same time. It's great.
Clive, you make it seem like it's just another day at the office. Job well done by the entire team here on the Penske end. Will Power, the winner at Toronto.
Will Power probably doesn't know this, but 52 years ago on this very day, in this very location, a guy by the name of the King, Richard Petty, won his very first ever NASCAR stock car race. 52 late years later, Will Power in Penske, number 12, Verizon Dallara, takes home his 4th victory of the year. And boy, he did a magnificent job as he makes his way around this track one more time, to the delight of this very strong crowd here at Toronto.
And for Will Power, his great year continues to go. Remember, he was a part-time driver last year for Penske, wanted to get on full-time by the results he had last year. He accomplished that. He knows how lucky he is. He says, I'm very charmed right now to be able to drive for Team Penske. And a great season so far, and also getting married later this year in December. So he hopes that he wins the championship. He can go off and celebrate, he told me yesterday.
The exhilaration he feels can be just the opposite end of the scale for what probably Justin Wilson feels, and you've been there, you know what it's like.
And for Justin, he knows that he should have got a better restart. He was trying, but that time you have to give it to Will Power because he was on the tail end going through turns 8 and 9 and put the pressure on Wilson to make that back end slip out in turn 10, Marty.
Well, let's check in because Rick has caught up with Dario Franchitti.
Well, we have to talk about good news and bad news. The good news is we always seem to be talking to each other, but it's always on the podium and not on the winner's circles. The last week it was 3rd. This week it's 2nd. You're moving up. Let's talk about how you ended up in that 2nd position.
Yeah, you know, not a bad job by the Target guys today. Our air-wet car was pretty good. It was a lot to do with track position, and we pitted 1 lap early, and Justin and Will jumped us when they went a lap longer. And that was it. I managed to get past Justin when he was trying to get back up to speed on the cold tires. And
now, last week at the end of the race, you were talking about how it was tires that really held you back. You just didn't seem to have enough to go after Wilson or after Power this time. What was it?
Well, I mean, I think in fairness to Firestone, that was what we did with the car that they did to their tires. No, this week we just weren't quite quick enough. As I say, I think if we'd have been leading, Will wouldn't have got past us. But as I say, we lost the track position in the strategy we chose to take. But one of those things, not a bad day, but we'll need to improve just a little bit.
Dario Franchitti still nibbling away.
Well, take a look at the championship points chase in the IZOD IndyCar Series standings, and it is now a 42-point lead for Dario Franchitti. 78 over Scott Dixon. Ryan Briscoe, Ryan Hunter-Ray picks up 1 spot, knocking Elio Castroneves down. Couple of bright spots today, not on the points scale, but Graham Rahal had his best finish of the season in 5th, and Simona Di Silvestro in 9th, her best career finish in her rookie season in the IZOD IndyCar Series. And let's celebrate with Will Power, Jamie Little.
And his second victory here in Toronto, his last one coming in 2007. Will Power, the greatest name in racing, stands on top of his car, celebrates standing on the side pod, the confetti falls. Let's get Will Power to come off his race car over here. All of his team members congratulating him. Will, come on down here. Holding his hands. I know it was a long, hard day. Will, you told me on Friday it was going to be the driver that was the most aggressive and the driver that could adapt to the changes. How much did you have to adapt to get this win today?
That's exactly right. I mean, the tires went off so badly because they had pickup those last restarts. You saw what happened to Justin. Man, I almost lost it a couple of times too, and just so happy to get a Verizon car, a bigger points lead. The whole team worked really hard, and man, I just love winning.
Well, you also told me this car after practice needed some work. How crucial was your team in getting this win?
Yeah, I mean, this whole team worked so well together, you know. Stops are good today, and yeah, we struggled in practice. We worked really hard, and this is the end result.
Hey, you know, Ryan Briscoe said if you won, you have to bust out a rap song. That's a little secret about Will Power.
I know. He keeps putting me on the spot, so I'm going to have to learn a rap, and my own rap.
Hey, the more you win, the more we learn about you, right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go over to Vince Welch.
Oh, what as you saw the euphoria of victory lane, and just the other end of that spectrum here with Justin Wilson. You had such a dominant car today at times. What happened first on the restart?
I wish I knew. I went through turn 7 on that restart, and you know, Will had got by me. I was fine with that. I thought we'll live to fight another day, but went through turn 7. As I lifted off, I got sideways, so I got on the brakes and I just locked the rears. That was just my fault, I guess, on you know, just locked the rears all the way through the brake zone and just couldn't get them unlocked in time for the corner. At first I thought I got a puncture, like the left rear, but you know, I think it was just pickup. I got on the tire and just not done a good enough job to get them cleaned up before the restart.
How do you keep in perspective the quality weekend that you guys had when you have the result that I know that you're not satisfied with?
Well, it's tough. You know, everyone on Drive Reinbold Racing and you know, the guys on the Z-Line design car just deserve much better than that. You know, we've had such a great weekend. We've made some great strides throughout the weekend, and you know, to be leading it 15 laps from the end, and you know, just very disappointed, and you know, can't apologize enough. You know, that's as tough as it is on this track. It's easy to make mistakes, but at the end of the day, you know, I can only put that down to a driver error, and just want to put that behind me and move on.
Thanks for the time, Justin. Rick DeBrule.
Hey, kid. Yeah, from a driver who can't believe he didn't win the race to a driver who can't believe he finished 3rd. I asked you how your car would do, and you said horrendous. So how does a horrendous car finish 3rd?
Well, it was just really tough conditions out there today. I think a lot of people had a hard time, you know, with the track and the marbles and everything else. But man, that was hard fighting. It was like qualifying the whole time, and you know, with all the attrition and all the chaos that was going on. I mean, cars were going off in front of us, behind us, all the yellows. It was hard to stay in a rhythm. But, you know, the guys did a great job, and we salvaged a good points finish today.
And you were saying it was hard not to spin out in some locations. If you got just slightly off the line.
Oh, yeah, I almost lost it 4 or 5 times and gathered it back up. Thankfully, I almost spun where Wilson did, too. So feel bad for him on that. But this is a great finish for Andretti Autosport. Great team, and you know, I'm just happy to do it with this fresh outlook of the rest of the season and everything. It's looking good from here, so we'll just keep plugging away. We salvaged a good finish today. We're still looking for more wins this season, though. That's the agenda.
Ryan Hunter-Reay finishing third with what he called a horrendous car.
Well, he said that it's the toughest place to drive. You've got to be so hard on the wheel and right up on it. Final thoughts?
Well, this series is getting so competitive right now, and obviously we've seen Penske and Ganassi dominate here, but we're also seeing a lot of other teams starting to catch up to those two superpower teams, and I think we'll see more of that as this year continues on. On the other side also, this is becoming a contact sport simply because it is so competitive, and you really have to muscle your way past the car that's in front. I look for a lot of fireworks here for the remaining races throughout the season.
Well, let's talk about what's going to happen next week on the ESPN family of networks, because we're going to be opening up our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Indianapolis. It's the Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral. Our coverage starts at noon on ESPN. For us, this is our final IndyCar telecast. From here on out, our friends over at Versus will take you through the championship, and we wish them all the best, Bob Jenkins and his entire team, as they'll take you home with their next race at Edmonton next week. Coming up next, you saw that there, the Open Championship today. And, of course, congratulations once more to a four-time winner in the season, Will Power, our winner here at Toronto. Special thanks to our entire IndyCar crew for ESPN on ABC. And a special thanks to you, Scott Goodyear, Rick DeBrule, Jamie Little, Vince Welch, everybody that helps make all this happen for us. We've had a ball, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week from Indy. So for all of us, this is Marty Reed till we meet again.